Hey guys, welcome back. We're going to be talking about some basic functionality of our data frames and some descriptive statistics that we can get from our data frame. So here I'm using our last data frame, the one we created in the last tutorial, this same one with name, admission number, and serial number. So let's look at some basic functionalities that we can use. So firstly, we can check the shape of our data frame by using the shape function. And if you execute this, you see we have 7 by 3. So 7 by 3 means it has 7 rows and 3 columns. And if you check the data frame here, you will see that we have 3 columns and we have 7 rows. So that is the shape function. You can also check if the data frame is empty by using the empty function, and it will return true if it is and false if it is not. And of course in this case it is not, so that's why it's returning false. You can also check the number of dimension. In this case we have 2 dimensions, it's just 7 by 3. So using the end-dim function, and you see we have 2. It's returning 2 here, so we have 2 dimensions. You can also check the size of your DF, the overall size, and that's usually the number of rows times the number of columns. So 7 times 3 is 21. So that's the size. You can also print the values. It will print all the values that you have when you print this. So you see we have all the values for each rows. This is the first row, second row, third row, fourth row, fifth and sixth and seventh, like that. So that is the values. You can also print the head in case, because moving forward we'll be working with data sets that will have thousands of rows, hundreds of rows. So sometimes you might just want to have a clue of what your data frame looks like. So there's something that we call the head function. It will just print the first 5 rows of your data frame, and the tail function as well. The head function prints the first 5 rows, while the tail function prints the last 5 rows. So in our case we have just 7 rows in total, so it will not really make a difference, but let's just see. So here you see we have, it prints everything because we have a small data frame, we have a small data set. And also the tail wouldn't make any difference because we have a small data set. So you see we are getting almost the same thing for the head and tail. But in the case where we have, if we can also indicate here, if you put head and let's say you write 2, that means you want it to print just 2 rows. Let me comment this out. So when you print this, you see that we just have 2 rows, 2 first rows. And you can also put an integer here as well. You put tail 2 here, so you just print the last 2 rows of your data frame here. So this is usually very useful in any analysis you are doing. You see we have the last 2 rows here and the first 2 rows here. So it's usually very useful when you, in any analysis you'll be doing, one of the first things you will do after you load your data set is to check the head or the tail. So you can also check the sample. You can check a sample. If you just want it to shuffle, you can say my df dot sample, let's say 3. It will just give you random samples of your df. You see we have FEG. It's just a random sample. So just for you to have an overview of what your data looks like. So this is one of the functions you'll be using every time. There is no exploratory data analysis you'll be doing that you would not check the head of your data frame or a sample or the tail. So you need to just get used to checking the head of your data frame. So that's just some of the basic functions of a data frame. So now when you've explored and you've checked the shape, after checking the shape, you've checked the head, you've checked the tail, you've sampled, you might want to proceed further to just check, to have a descriptive statistic of your data frame. And descriptive statistic is just the overall summary of your data frame, and it will give you the basic statistics like the mean, the median, the maximum value, the minimum value, of course, for just the columns that are numbers. It won't work with categorical variables. So in every data set, we have what we call numerical variables and categorical variables. And as the name implies, numerical variables are variables that are numbers, or they can be numbers, can be integers or floats. While categorical variables are variables that are in categories, like maybe your name or maybe class. Maybe you can have salary range, low, high, medium. That is a categorical variable. But anything that has to do with number, like age, height, weight, salary in naira or something like that, those are numerical variables. And your descriptive statistics will only cover just your numerical variables, because you can't take the mean, median, or standard deviation of a categorical variable. So that's just that about that. So Pandas offers a very good shortcut to do all those calculations in just one function. So you will just say my df dot describe, and this describe will give you the statistical summary of your data. You see that we don't have the name column included because the name is a categorical variable, is an object. It is not an integer or a float number, so there's no way to make any calculations, any mathematical calculations on that. So we have just admission number and serial number. So here you see we have the first column to be count. So that is the total number of values you have for that column. For this column we have 7. For this column we have 7 as well. So the mean, to calculate the mean, this is standard deviation, the minimum value, the 25th percentile, the median, that is the 50th percentile, the 75%, and the maximum value. So sometimes most of the time you would need this descriptive statistics to give you an overview of your data set. Maybe you have outliers, just for you to know how much work that is needed to be done on your data set, how much cleaning. You get to understand what I mean by this as we move on. So that's just this about the descriptive statistics. So you can also calculate all this manually by just simply calling out the columns. You can just say my df, and then let's say admission number dot mean. If you do this, it would return the mean of that column. So you see you have 125. So but instead of having to do this manually, you can do the same for standard deviation, STD. You can do the same for your percentile, for your median, for your minimum value, for your maximum value. You can do all this for that. But instead of having to do this, you can just simply use the describe function, and it will just give you everything for all the numerical columns. So that's that about the basic functionalities of the data frames and descriptive statistics. So see you in the next tutorial.